This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Meredith Lynn at braindouche.net. Reviews, a collection of articles by Oscar Wilde, published by Robert Ross. Prologue. To Mrs. Carew. The apparently endless difficulties against which I have contended and am contending in the management of Oscar Wilde's literary and dramatic property have brought me many valued friends, but only one friendship which seemed as endless, one friend's kindness which seemed to annul the disappointment of 8 years. That is why I venture to place your name on this volume with the assurance of the author himself, who bequeathed to me his works and something of his indiscretion. Robert Ross, May 12, 1908. Introduction. The editor of writings by any author not long deceased is censured sooner or later for his errors of omission or commission. I have decided to err on the side of commission and to include in the uniform edition of Wilde's works everything that could be identified as genuine. Wilde's literary reputation has survived so much that I think it proof against any exhumation of articles which he or his admirers could have preferred to forget. As a matter of fact, I believe this volume will prove of unusual interest. Some of the reviews are curiously prophetic. Some are, of course, biased by prejudice, hostile or friendly. Others are conceived in the author's wittiest and happiest vein. Only a few are colorless. And if, according to Lord Beaconsfield, the verdict of a continental nation may be regarded as that of posterity, Wilde is a much greater force in our literature than even friendly contemporaries ever supposed he would become. It should be remembered, however, that at the time when most of these reviews were written, Wilde had published scarcely any of the works by which his name has become famous in Europe, though the protagonist of the aesthetic movement was a well-known figure in Paris and London. Later he was recognized, it would be truer to say that he was ignored, as a young man who had never fulfilled the high promise of a distinguished university career, although his volume of poems had reached its 5th edition, an unusual event in those days. He had alienated a great many of his Oxford contemporaries by his extravagant manner of dress and his methods of courting publicity. The great men of the previous generation, Wilde's intellectual peers, with whom he was in artistic sympathy, looked on him askance. Ruskin was disappointed with his former pupil, and Pater did not hesitate to express disapprobation to private friends. While he accepted incense from a disciple, he distrusted the thurifer. From a large private correspondence in my possession, I gather that it was, oddly enough, in political and social centers that Wilde's amazing powers were rightly appreciated, and where he was welcomed as the most brilliant of living talkers. Before he had published anything except his poems, the literary dovecots regarded him with dislike, and when he began to publish essays and fairy stories, the attitude was not changed. It was merely emphasized in the public press. His first dramatic success at the St. James Theatre gave Wilde, of course, a different position, and the dislike became qualified with envy. Some of the younger men, indeed, were dazzled, but with few exceptions their appreciation was expressed in an unfortunate manner. It is a consolation or a misfortune that the wrong kind of people are too often correct in their prognostications of the future. The far-seeing are also the foolish. From these reviews, which illustrate the middle period of Wilde's meteoric career, between the aesthetic period and the production of Lady Windermere's Fan, we learn his opinion of the contemporaries who thought little enough of him. That he revised many of these opinions, notably those that are harsh, I need scarcely say. After his release from prison, he lost much of his admiration for certain writers. I would draw special attention to those reviews of Mr. Swinburne, Mr. Wilfrid Blunt, Mr. Alfred Austin, the Honorable John Collier, Mr. Brandier Matthews, and Sir Edwin Arnold, Rossetti, Pater, Henley, and Morris. They have more permanent value than the others, and are in accord with the wiser critical judgments of today. For leave to republish the articles from the Pall Mall Gazette, I am indebted to Mr. William Waldorf Astor, the owner of the copyrights, by arrangement with whom they are here reprinted. I have to thank most cordially Messrs. Cassell and Company for permitting me to reproduce the editorial articles and reviews contributed by Wilde to the Woman's World, the editor and proprietor of The Nation for leave to include the 2 articles from the Speaker, and the editor of the Saturday Review for a similar courtesy. For identifying many of the anonymous articles I am indebted to Mr. Arthur Humphreys, not the least of his kindnesses in assisting the publication of this edition. For the trouble of editing, arrangement, and collecting of material I am under obligations to Mr. Stuart Mason, for which this acknowledgment is totally inadequate. Robert Ross, Reform Club, May 12, 1908. End of Prologue and Introduction.